Happy marriages can be happier, and shaky marriages can mend. Specific insight and custom codes work. Fix love now. It's the Marriage Code Podcast.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, Obinna and Belinda Ndu here with our podcast, and we are excited. We're excited for you guys to join us. We're excited for what God is going to use us to share. And, you know, we were coming to this today and, you know, just as excited as you are to find out we were coming here and say, man, we can't wait till we start and hear what we have to say too. So we're excited for what's going to happen. You know how it is. You have an agenda of what you want to cover, and then God takes the conversation somewhere else. So baby, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Again, thank you again for listening. Thank you again for joining us. Don't forget to share this podcast. If this has blessed you, don't forget to pay it forward. Today, what we're going to speak about is one of the books that we're currently working on, and it's called Just Because Your Mouth is Moving, It Doesn't Mean That You're Communicating. So I know that's, not a title that you would understand what we want you to understand just by listening to the title, but it's because we want you to open the book. So what actually led us to this title is the fact that I thought I was an expert communicator. I'm telling you, when I came to this marriage, I had it all together. And the interesting thing about it is that 15 years ago, my husband and I, when we dated for a year and a half, this was before, he dumped me and went back to his ex.
I didn't dump her, y'all.
Okay, that's another story. But we dated for a year and a half, and during that year and a half time period, I literally learned so much, and I'm sure that he did too. But this part of the story is about me. One of the days, I remember specifically, he traveled to Florida to visit with me, and at the time he was living in New Jersey, and we were at a gas station. And he had known that prior to our relationship, I felt like I had never been in love. I never experienced heartbreak. I never had someone break up with me. It just was what my life was. So if he was there today, great. If he was gone tomorrow, bye. So that is just what, my life was at the time. And then he just confronted me. He said to me, he was like, Belinda, do you know why you've never been in love? And I'm like, okay, I've never seen him so passionate. What is this? He said, it's because you refuse to feel. And to me, that took me to a place to where it opened my eyes. It made me stop. It made me re-examine who I was as a person, who I was as an individual. And you're absolutely right. That's what it was. I was so afraid of getting hurt. Not knowingly, this was on a subconscious level. I mean, my father wasn't in my life, and that hurt me. And now as an adult with 6 children, I'm just getting to the point to where I can effectively deal with that. And I didn't know that a defense mechanism that I had created for myself was to not feel. I'm just not going to feel, because my experience with men is that they hurt. So I brought that to my relationship with my husband, and he confronted me on it. And you want to take it from there, babe? Because one of the things I want to know is we were both very young. And one of the things that you had down and you knew was communication. I mean, you've actually gotten much better, believe it or not, since we've been married now. But one of the things you had is that, hey, I know communication and you're not doing it. I know, and a part of communication is actually empathizing with the person you're with. And that's something that was completely absent in my communication and in my experience in our relationship. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
And he recognized that, and he said, yeah, well, 1 + 1 = 2 here. Right. This is not strange math. And it's just something that I wasn't aware of. And it's so interesting now that we're on the other side of it. I see so many other relationships suffering from that, or so many women going through life happy seemingly and just not feeling because they're afraid to be heard. So how is it that you recognize that in me? And how is it that you were able to have the courage, not just have the courage to call me out on it, but how is it that you were able to, at such a young age, to pin that and to speak on it with such confidence?
Right.
What was your experience like?
Well, honestly speaking, babe, I'm not an expert. Well, back then I wasn't an expert in any of it. I did grow up, though, in a family where I was raised by my mom. And being the oldest boy, my mom and I had amazing communication. Still to this day, amazing communication. I never have to wonder where I am with my mom on things, and she doesn't either with me. But I learned it from her. At times I thought she was too upfront, because I'm like, Mom, I can't get that out of my head now. I did not need to know that, but it served its purpose.
Right.
So I think that that's all it was. It's kind of like if I've always, eaten vanilla chocolate and you never even had vanilla chocolate ice cream, right? I had vanilla chocolate ice cream and you never even knew what the concept of ice cream was. As soon as I saw it, I would identify it. Right. You wouldn't, right? Because believe it or not, the way that the world occurs to us or to any human being is based on what we know, right? Because if I don't know it, if the reason I'm responding that way is because I know this thing or I don't know this thing. So for me, because I had been so used to and been around a woman, in this case, my mom, who was a masterful communicator, who shared exactly what was on her heart, whether it was right or wrong, I never had to guess. So at that time when we met, it was easy for me to identify, like, oh, that's what your challenge is. You're not allowing yourself to go here. Right. And so that's all it was. It wasn't that I was an expert. But again, that's also part of the thing that I see happen in marriages where rather than accepting each other for their giftings, right? Because that's what that was. It was a gift my mom indirectly handed down to me. Rather than accepting each other for their gifting, we judge each other, right? Because you could have said back to me, well, what do you mean I don't know how to communicate? My mom taught me how to talk too. And now we're fighting about what our mothers didn't teach us or did teach us versus, hey, this is an opportunity, to help somebody that I love. And so for me, that's what it really was. It was just honesty and, going off of what I knew.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, babe. And I know you have that gift and you were handed down that gift and you take it for granted, actually.
Sometimes,
because you don't
yes,
understand how important it is. Because I understand, it's not a dirty little secret, but just to let you guys in, I was married before. And it just didn't work. And one of the reasons why is because of the poor levels of communication skills that we both had. And we did not talk about anything, effectively. So we could not problem solve. Right. We were not a safe place for each other to complain. Right. There was not any validating of each other's feelings. Right. And I noticed that in our relationship, we both brought levels of that to each other. Right. And number one, we became a safe space for each other to share each other's differences, likes and dislikes, and to grow, use those complaints as things that we stand on, like the analogy you give so often, to reach that higher shelf.
That's right.
So yeah, I think that's a really big deal. But one of the things we want to bring out today is expressing what we really feel.
Yes.
How big is that? Because one of the concepts we talk about in the book, just because your mouth is moving doesn't mean you're communicating, is truth versus honesty. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. And it's funny you bring that up because that's where I was about to take the conversation. Okay. And even using your old marriage as an example, right? A lot of people think that because sounds are coming out of their mouth that they're communicating. Because I'm talking to you, I'm communicating. Yes, on a very surface level of what is communication, you are communicating. Right. But when we talk about real communication, we're talking about actually what you just asked me about, which is expressing that which either may be difficult to express, expressing that which may be uncomfortable to express, expressing that which may be, I don't know, what's another phrase? Expressing that thing that may hurt the other person, expressing that thing that just for some reason, you don't really want to go there. And so when we talk about truth versus honesty, truth is what is, and honesty is expressing what is the way it is, right? Because as an example, in our culture today, we have this thing where it's a term called politically correct, right? And so again, just as an example.
Or what they don't know won't hurt them.
Right, exactly, which is another version of being politically correct.
Yeah.
Let me say it this way.
Right.
Well, let me not say that because I don't want them to, any of that stuff. That's just
Not telling
being
them the
truth.
whole
That's the
truth,
truth, but not being honest.
Yes,
You see, a lot of us, we're dealing in truth. We're not lying to the person, right? If I withhold something from you, I didn't lie to you. Right. So the justification in our mind is, well, I didn't lie, so it's okay.
Right.
But here's what they don't understand is that you also weren't honest.
Right.
So that's even worse.
Yes.
Because the unknown enemy is the one that's even more dangerous than the known. Right. And so for me personally, my thing has always been, be honest.
Yes.
If it's going to hurt the person, fine. You can sandwich the hurt that you're about to communicate in between two pieces of bread called empathy,
Yes.
right? Compassion,
Right.
right? I can say, baby, listen, what I'm about to say to you may hurt you. But know that that's not my intention. Baby, what I'm about to say may even offend you, but that's not what I'm trying to do here. So please, if you do get hurt or if you are offended, just please bite your tongue for a minute and give me a chance to just get fully expressed in this so that we can then address what it is. Oh my gosh, anybody who loves somebody would appreciate that empathy, that compassion that they sandwiched what the main course was. And so the whole thing about honesty versus truth is be honest, no matter what you suspect the outcome is going to be, because that's the only way we can get to truth.
Right.
That's the only way we can truly be authentic.
Yes.
Because anything that light has not been shown on, that has not been, light hasn't touched, is what then the enemy, the dark forces, whatever you want to refer to it as, that's what they're going to use to cause a further wedge between you.
Right.
And then later on, here's the irony of this conversation. The honesty is always had.
Yes.
It always comes out. My thing is, okay, if it's always going to come out, you might be, well, before I go there, you might say, well, Obi, how is it going to come out? How is the honesty always going to come out? Because if I don't tell them something they don't know, they don't even know they didn't know it. So how is the honesty eventually going to come out down the line? Well, somehow, some way, you're going to mistreat that person based on that thing that they don't. Because you're going to use it to judge. You're going to use it to base your action on. And they're going to look at you and wonder, I don't understand why you did this. It just doesn't make sense. And then you now have to confess.
Right.
Because they confronted you. They felt something.
Or never confess and end up divorcing.
And then guess what? After you divorce, then you go back and still tell them because now you feel freedom. Well, shoot. Yeah, I'm going to tell him anyway. I'm already divorced.
Right.
He asked me. She asked me. So if that's the case, if the truth is always going to still eventually be, you got to be honest about it at some point. Doesn't it make sense to be honest about it up front?
When it can save your relationship
Yes.
and your marriage. Yeah.
Exactly.
And bring healing rather than devastation.
Exactly.
I love that point. So one of the other things too, because one of the main things that I want to point out before we move on to the next point is that you said something that is going to be utterly important for individuals taking any of this advice. Presenting it properly or sandwiching it properly. Or you understand? Just my husband, you're so funny, babe. You brought this to our marriage. You said, well, I want to preface this conversation first. And I'm like, okay, what am I preparing myself for here? What's about to happen? And you will always be so gentle in your approach in terms of thinking about my feelings and saying, babe, I don't want you to take this the wrong way.
Right.
You didn't burn the biscuits.
Right.
I'm just saying take them out sooner next time.
That's it. God still loves you, honey.
So whatever the situation is, you would really bring it to me in a gentle way so that by the time I was done listening to what you had to say, you had made me feel so good in the preface or the prefacing of the conversation to come to where I was very well prepared and equipped. So, because a lot of times when we come with defensiveness in the relationship, it's because we're at the place to where we feel like our spouse, we're being attacked. So proper communication, guys, you'll learn this in the book as well, that by confronting your spouse, properly, a part of confronting your spouse properly is preparing to have proper communication, which is, okay, if you're going to say something negative, which, is the opposite of positive, guys. It's not rocket science. If you're going to say something negative, understand that can be a complaint or it can be criticism. So in a marriage, in a healthy relationship, criticism should never be present. Complaining should be allowed. Complaining basically means that, hey, this is what happened and this is what it made me feel like.
Right.
Criticism means you did this, you did that, you're the bad person, you're the villain, and because of that, I'm going to make you suffer until you die.
Right.
Okay? So having those two distinctions are utterly important, because that's where you can begin to have healthy communication and allow the healing process to begin.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think that it's in the same way, like before a guest shows up at your home, you clean up.
Yeah.
It's in the same way when a woman is pregnant and the couple is expecting their first baby, they go by the crib. They create the space for the child to be welcomed in.
Right.
Well, if you're going to have a conversation with your spouse, the most important person to you in this whole world, doesn't it make sense to prepare? Right. I mean, the other suggestion I would also give in terms of preparation in this topic that we're speaking of is the conversation, and this has been proven. This is not a litmus test. It's not beta tested. This is already a proven thing in the psychology of marriage.
Right.
In that the conversation will never rise past the first 3 minutes of it.
Right.
So in other words, part of getting the environment ready for the talk, if you will, is making sure you're right. If you're still wildly upset, you're not ready to talk yet.
Right.
Because the only thing you're going to spit out of your mouth is venom.
Yes.
Right? The only thing that's going to occur for you in your thinking is judgment. The only way you're going to see that person is through red. And so you got to make sure not only are you right, but make sure they're right.
Yeah.
So if the temperature is still very hot, okay, we're going to talk, but not yet. Right? So you got to make sure you both are in a proper mind frame, and also make sure that you both are in a place of being willing not only to be honest with the other person, right? Because everybody's always willing to be honest about how somebody was wrong.
Yeah.
But are you also willing to be honest to receive how you were wrong?
That's right.
And so the first 2 to 3 minutes of the conversation sets the tone for the rest of it.
Wow.
You and I love to start in prayer. Right? Whenever we remember. And if we started out wrong, I promise you guys, my wife and I still sometimes mess this up. About 99% of the time we get it right, but we still mess it up because we've gotten so now used to wanting to come back and let's now have that talk that we're willing to do that sometimes a little bit prematurely. And so I'm saying to all of us, and this is for you and I too, my love, that we remember, all of us, that the first 2 to 3 minutes of that conversation, how we started determines more than likely how the rest of it will go. Wow. So if we start off with receiving hearts in the same way that we're willing to give and tell that person how they wronged us, let's also remember, hey, I also need to be willing to listen to how I wronged them just as much as I want them to listen to me. Yeah.
That's awesome, babe. A great point. And you know what? It reminded me of one of the principles that our mentor, one of our marriage mentors, because we have them too.
Right.
One of our marriage mentors taught us is that, listen, you have not earned the right to complain about your spouse to your spouse.
That's right.
Let alone anyone else if you have not first complimented them first.
Give me some. That's what I'm talking about. Exactly.
So we call it, as a matter of fact, it's actually in our video series.
Yeah.
It's our 5-module video series, which is what is it called again, babe? We have so much material. It's like Marriage Blueprint, Tools of Engagement. It's really awesome. Go to our website and click on our tools and you'll have access to that immediately. But, it's called the 10-to-1 rule. Yeah. Like if you know you have one major complaint, then you better compliment your spouse before you start that, so that it can cushion the blow. It can babe, for example, I'm going to give you.
I was about to say, honey, can we give an example? Because I don't want somebody to be like, you know what, baby, I know I'm mad at you, but I think you look so beautiful today. And honey, I love your shoes. And baby, that shirt you have on is so this. Baby, that sweater. Honey, the way you looked last night. You know what your spouse is going to think? What do you want?
What are you up
You
to?
just completely messed it all up. They become suspicious rather than receiving.
Exactly. So, for example, we always want to keep in mind that we're responsible for our spouse's self-esteem in our marriage. So like for me, I'm always like, baby, wow, that butt's so tight. We just keep it real. We're all adults here, right? We're
That's
all
why we have
adults.
6 children.
I'm
6
always
children.
telling my husband how sexy he is, or how handsome he looks. Like, babe, they can't hold the candle to you. Like, because I take it personally, my responsibility to make sure that he feels like Superman.
Right.
And we encourage you all to do that as well. Take that on. And my husband does a great job of making me feel like I am the most beautiful woman in the world.
Yes, he
so thank you, babe. And I appreciate that. So the thing that we definitely want to encourage you guys to do is to do this all the time, so that when you come to that conversation, you're not trying to just pile on 10 compliments right there, and now you're all over the place. But say, for instance, you're talking about the way they manage funds. So you want to say, babe, you do a great job with bringing everything in the pot together, with the family. And I see the love that you bring to the table in terms of, how giving you are to the kids, and how you're always planning ahead for Christmas, or not necessarily, but so you just want to say, I appreciate you there. If there's one thing I'd like for you to get better at, it would be that if we have a budget, you not going over that budget, because when you go over that budget, then it sets us back a month. Now, is there something that happened that caused that to happen the last 4 times and how can we fix it? So you guys understand, that's not something that has actually happened, like a conversation we've had in that way. Well, actually, I have gone over the budget a few times and we have had to talk about it, but this particular conversation is not one that we have had to have. So I'm just making something up right now, but you guys get the point. We're giving you an example. So if whatever it is, stay in that category in terms of the compliments, and watch your spouse, is very ready to receive you, is in a better space to fix whatever problem it is, because they now see or feel like you see them as a 10. They want to keep their status in the marriage or in their relationship. So, it only just sounds fair. So that's pretty much all we want to give. We want to give you everything. We don't want to give you everything today, but please, if this blessed you in any way, feel free to share it. Feel free to download our podcast and catch us on our next viewing. Before we close out, I'm going to give my husband the last words.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, baby. I think that this whole thing around communication is so amazingly profound in terms of the power that it brings. I think everybody recognizes that communication is the heartbeat of a relationship, of course, next to love and God and all those things. But you got to think for a moment, though, just to kind of bring this home. Like, if somebody was to be at war with someone else, or they were in conflict, do you know that if you take out your enemy's communication, you pretty much can guarantee that you're going to win the war? And so I bring that up just to say that if you look back in time, most wars were started because of miscommunication. Most wars were started because somebody said something that somebody got offended by. Most catastrophes, most marriages have ended. Most siblings haven't spoken for years. And I can go on, but it comes down to the power of the words that come out of your mouth. And so my cry today, my beck and call for you today would be, start paying attention to that. Start thinking about the things that come out of your mouth. And, yes, it's okay to have a thought, but once the words have left your mouth, there's no getting them back. I remember an example that I shared one day. I took a pillow and the feathered pillow, and I opened it up, threw it all out the window. Like every single feather, wind is blowing, gone. And then I told the kid that I was talking to, now go out there and go get every feather. He's like, that's impossible. I said, yeah, you're right. To get every single feather back is impossible. You can go out there and get some. You might even get most. You might get every single one, but one got away. And so once the words have left your mouth, it's like the feathers leaving the pillow. You can't get them all back, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much good you do. So my encouragement to you is before you open up the pillow and let out all your feathers, stop, pause, pray, think, is this going to get us back to love? And if the answer is not a resounding yes, don't say it. So that would be my advice.
Wow, babe. This is why I love you. All right, guys. Thank you again, and we'll catch you on the next podcast. Take care.
Marriages need lifelong learning. Visit www.covenantmarriageacademy.com. Learn, see, and grow in marital bliss. We have video help, counseling appointments available, and more. The Ndus have solutions specifically for you. Fix love now.